Hello, today is the 26th of May 2022. Things are really bad right now in the country, in the United States, here in America. Things are making a turn for the worse. There was just recently, in fact, just a few days ago, yet another mass shooting. And unfortunately, and really expectantly, it involved children and another elementary school. There are at least 21 victims, I believe. The last count was 19 of them being children from a 4th grade class. This is probably the lowest point that we've reached in perhaps a decade. It's the lowest point that we've reached as a nation, as a humanity, as a community, where we are now presiding over this massacre, this mass murder. And I am sad to say that it is not an isolated or insulated case. I'm sad and disturbed to say that it is not a lone gunman that did this, that basically ushered this tragedy upon us. This is long in the making, long coming, and predictable and expected, given our predicament and situation in the country with the problem with the exuberant and extreme amount of guns distributed throughout the population, especially among a population of degenerate, angry, disillusioned, frustrated, racist, bigoted, and violent individuals. All throughout the country, especially throughout the South, the southern states, we have a mentality of worship and awe towards violence and guns, militarism, war, firepower. The tragedy that just occurred in Texas, a southern state which encourages and boasts gun ownership, gun rights, gun freedom, gun everything. It's a state that repeatedly and consistently tries to minimize any restrictions on guns. And it is, again, the state that is the place where many mass shootings have occurred. The same rhetoric is being parroted about mental health, and ignoring and trying to deflect the blame from the problem of not only the mentality of gun worship, but the widespread ownership of guns, the easy acquisition of guns, and the rampant and almost rabid distribution, both by legal means and illegal means, of guns. It is just out of control, 100%. And we find ourselves yet again with dead children in our hands. It is our fault. It is the fault of those that support the system. It is the fault of those that perpetuate the system, myself included. It is all of our fault. But it is especially the fault of those that support gun rights, so-called gun rights, and gun freedom, and gun owning, and everything dealing with guns. I expect there to be very little change, if any. Although there's some talk of change that is expected. That a small amount of talk for change in gun laws. But even the talk on that change is very very limited. And I believe ineffective change. The change that we require is groundbreaking, should be a watershed change where basically guns are banned from the United States population. The United States population is just too violent a population, too idiotic and stupid of a population to be trusted and allowed to have such a lethal weapon. That is just the case. Other than the very real and severe problem of gun violence that we find ourselves in, we are in the midst of an economic crisis unlike we've seen in many years, perhaps over a decade. Inflation is out of control, is through the roof. Prices for just about everything has gone up very dramatically and significantly. We have experienced, when I say we, I mean people of low income, working people that depend on a weekly paycheck or bi-weekly paycheck, to live paycheck to paycheck. People in that economic bracket have experienced, I believe, a very severe few months where gas prices have skyrocketed, due in part, only in very small part, due to the war in Ukraine, but all in very large or bigger parts due to the greed or of corporate America and to the speculators' greed that bring prices up, and that has spiraled out of control now. We stand at about an 8% inflation rate on average. So you best believe that in many areas it's much higher than that, although in some areas maybe lower. But on average we're talking about 8 to 9%. And food prices have gone up quite dramatically. In some instances, as I just heard in a report from a credible source, that meat prices have gone up to 24%, from about 11 to 24%, depending on the type of meat, from the major and biggest meat producers, meat packers in the nation. So that gives you an idea of the amount of hike that the prices have taken for food. And those that suffer the most are those that lie just above the poverty line, the qualification to be under some sort of assistance from the government, like food stamps, EBT. And those people are the ones that are being hurt the most. There may be people that have been denied assistance, even though they are at the poverty line or below. There may be many people that fall through the cracks. There may be many people that are just not able to qualify for that type of assistance. So even those people, especially, are suffering quite a lot. This problem that we find ourselves in with food insecurity, food, high cost of food. So the same thing has occurred with gasoline prices have gone up very dramatically as well, and we find ourselves again in a crisis where everything goes up because gas goes up, including food, but not only food, but every other item that you purchase has gone up in price. And that is putting a squeeze on the poor, the working poor, the people standing below the poverty line, people that are just barely making it with what they earn. It is just, the situation is just getting tougher and tougher. It is tough and only getting tougher. I just put some gas now. It is, as far as I've seen, over $4 on average here in this area. This area is probably one of the lowest cost of gas you're gonna find in the state. Perhaps one of the lowest in the whole region, if not one of the lowest in the country. However, it is above $4 and holding steady. Just a few weeks ago actually, the prices had gone up, and then it came back down just slightly. However, they are back up, and things are looking very grim. The prices are holding up. I've seen it above $4 for over a week now. That is quite a long time, and it is something that's probably going to linger. If it does linger longer, things are going to get even more out of control, and things are going to get really bad for many people. They are already bad, and they will continue to get bad. Violence is on the uptick, apparently, and it's obviously visible in the last few mass shootings. I am not linking the economic situation with violence, but with the recent violence, that is, with the recent mass shootings, but violence and economic hard times do have a link. They do have a correlation there, and that is always been the case, where desperation does affect crime and the propensity to crime, to criminal activity. So that is where we stand right now. It is quite bad and expected to get worse. Prepare for it to be worse, and I would recommend people to stay calm if they are listening to this. Stay hopeful. Just keep doing things as correctly and as honestly as you can. change your behavior. I believe the best thing to do is to change your behavior. Don't keep going out for dinners a few times a week. Don't keep buying food from fast food restaurants or sit down restaurants when the food is food prices are up. Stop hoarding things at the supermarket. Stop buying things, and overflowing your food pantries. Stop hoarding food. That is just causing more problems, causing the economy to remain bad. Attempt to buy less, even though the future is uncertain. It probably will remain uncertain for some time. However, hoarding a bunch of food is probably not going to do a whole lot for you. And, just remember that you are only as safe as your neighbor is satisfied. You're only as safe as the people that live around you are, they have a okay quality of life. If the people around you have an extremely low quality of life, and you are prepared and have all kinds of food and water, they're going to come after you. They will attack you. They will come take your stuff. Whether you like it or not, that is just the case. So it's best to act as a community instead of acting as a individual and hoard things in preparation. I'm not saying that preparation is bad. However, you should think as a community also, and attempt to do things that will benefit the community, not only yourself. We'll leave it at that for now. Thank you very much. Hope to hear what you think about this situation now with the food prices and the gas prices out of control, and what you think the future may hold. Thank you very much. Well, today's May 31st, 2022, and I'd like to discuss a couple of issues, mainly the police response during the last and most outrageous and egregious mass shooting, the one in the school in Uvalde, Texas. The police response, as I now have learned, was dismal, cowardly, and delayed, and almost, it appears that they almost waited for the gunman to be done killing all the kids before they actually went into the classroom where he was apparently locked in. As reported, the police waited 78 minutes before going into the classroom, when logic and human dignity will tell you that especially when there are kids, innocent kids at risk that are still alive, which was the case when the gunman was shooting and apparently able and ready to keep killing in a classroom filled with kids, 2 classrooms I believe, filled with kids, grown police officers, grown men, were outside of the classrooms waiting for something, waiting for a good opportunity, I would guess, to come in, and waited up to 78 minutes at that. That's over 1 hour before they actually went in and took action. is outrageous, which is ludicrous, which is murderous, which is, almost seems that they were waiting for the gunman to be finished with with his killing, pretty much. The cowardness, the fragility of the police officers was unbelievable. I would like to think that if I was in their place, I would rush in, guns blazing, no questions asked, given the situation that there are innocent children inside. Trust me, you will be protected, you will be shielded as you go in, because all of your faculties will be at work at that time if you are really determined to rescue the rest of the children that are still alive, and perhaps save those that were shot, wounded, and still alive, even though they were severely shot or wounded. And it is a sad case that most likely lives were lost, kids were shot, kids died during those 78 minutes that police cowardly waited outside. Again, I think this has a lot to do with race, with the racial makeup of the students, the parents, the city, the area. And this, I believe, has a lot to do with the background, the ethnicity of the students and the parents and the schools, the makeup of the schools, which is, I believe, was or is mostly Hispanic, mostly of immigrant parents. So a lot less care, a lot less urgency was put by the authorities, even though presumably a lot of the police officers were also of immigrant background, Hispanic background. But I believe in police forces and in any other institution here in the U.S. which is heavily racialized, heavily controlled by white supremacy, heavily influenced by racism. Even people of immigrant backgrounds are trained, are expected, are forced, are brainwashed to act in support of white supremacy, in support of racism, in support of what the police really does and has done historically, which is oppress the poor, criminalize the poor, criminalize poverty, criminalize misdemeanors such as drug offenses, non-violent drug offenses, beats and stomp on the poor, the powerless, the minority, racists. They're there to uphold the racial hierarchy with Europeans and European descendants on top. They're there to protect the powerful, which is most of the time, 9 times out of 10 or more, of European descent, Caucasians, whites. They're there to protect property. That has been and still is their job ever since the policing was started in the 19th century, 18th century, back in the inception of the country, back when slave patrols were created, which evolved into what we now call police. That is the truth. That is the case. That has always been the case. Police is here not to really protect, but to subjugate people that are perceived by the ruling class, which is white supremacists, what they perceive to be undesirable. or people that are in the lower strata, in lower ranks, in lower classes. That is just the truth, and that played out perfectly in Uvalde, Texas, sadly and disturbingly enough. And the love of guns in this country is a disgusting fact that aided and allowed this situation to happen, where a 18-year-old that is not too far from any other 18-year-old, mentally, physically, not too far off, was able to purchase a weapon of war, which is designed and marketed for the destruction of life, a very efficient and gruesome destruction of human life, by destroying vital organs, destroying the ability for the body to live, and the ability for the body to recover. It completely obliterates soft and hard tissue. And again, it was designed by a government, by the armed forces of a government, commissioned to be designed to destroy life as quickly as possible. And that was pretty much demonstrated during that last shooting and the one before in Buffalo, New York, when the victims were so badly mutilated, badly destroyed, that it took DNA samples from parents to identify some of the victims. It is sad that this is the case. It is sad that this is where we stand right now as a nation, as a world, as a humanity, where we allow and we accept these things happening in the name of quote-unquote gun rights, quote-unquote the Second Amendment and freedom, when in reality those people that support gun rights at the cost, at the sacrifice of even young innocent kids, those people are monsters. Those people are heartless. Those people are racist. Those people are basically looking out for their own skin, and in reality they are killing their own kids. In reality, they while thinking they are protecting their own lives, they are killing themselves. They will lose their own lives, perhaps at the hands of a gunman, perhaps with their own guns. And makes me think of scripture when Jesus reportedly mentioned the passage of protecting your life, as those that look to protect their own life. Presumably, I believe he meant the wrong way, too much, with the use of force, the use of firearms, the use of violence. Those people will be the ones that will lose their lives. And again, I believe this is what's happening. Sadly enough, it's at the cost also of innocent people that basically have no power, innocent people that perhaps have no guns or don't care to have guns, innocent people that have nothing to do with gun violence and killing in the love of guns, innocent children. I trust and believe that most, if not all, of those children care not one bit about AR-15s or guns, weapons of mass destruction. The survivors will probably be scarred, mentally scarred for the rest of their lives. Will probably be deeply traumatized, and those poor innocent kids are no longer innocent in the sense of having witnessed the worst that we have brought upon them. Exposure to death and destruction at the hands of a not too far off teenager that was able to purchase not one but two highly lethal and automatic firearm, able to kill and destroy human life very quickly and very efficiently, and powerful enough to hold at bay grown men wielding guns themselves. It is sad that this is the situation where we are now as a nation. It is sad that even countries, neighboring countries such as Canada, take action repeatedly against guns and gun craze or craziness, as we as a nation don't even hold a conversation about gun control. Canada, I just found out, is passing laws and rules against the distribution of automatic weapons, assault rifles and the such, and banning the imports of such weapons. It is sad that we can make amendments to change laws, to subjugate, to oppress minorities, people of color, the powerless, the poor, the disadvantaged, very quickly, all throughout the South. Just after the Reconstruction era, the Reconstruction efforts were destroyed. The South, in unison, almost in unison, all the states throughout the South passed laws very quickly and very efficiently that banned, that outlawed, that prevented, that subjugated large parts of the population, namely blacks and immigrants and indigenous people. And yet we find it seemingly impossible to amend what they call is the right to own and bear automatic weapons of war, quote unquote the Second Amendment, which mentions no such thing as automatic weapons of war, which mentions no thing such as the right for civilians to bear arms. It mentions organized militias, the right for states to have organized militias, and from that it is implied, it is interpreted by those that are desperate for power, are desperate to maintain a racial supremacy within the power structures, are interpreted as civilians, specifically white European descendants, to bear and use arms, because that same right and power is repeatedly and consistently denied for blacks, for Latinos, people of color, indigenous people. That is just a truth. That is the case. It has been shown to be the truth over and over and repeatedly, without almost any exception. So the situation that we find ourselves in with the massacres, the killing, the outright murder of even our most precious and innocent is now has been for a long time out of control. Mass shootings have become something that is expected. Mass shootings have become something routine, to where if it is not more than 5 or 6 dead, it doesn't really make much news on the national level, even in the local level. If it's 1 or 2 persons dying from a mass shooting, then really doesn't even make the news seemingly on the national level, which is a sad place to be as a nation, a sad place to be as a humanity. Many of those that support the police so much, that uphold the police, that love police so much, only when it upholds the traditional role of police, which is white supremacy, which is the protection of the powerful, which again are the protection of the white supremacists, and the protection of the property of those white supremacists. That is and has been the role of police, and police is loved and supported as long as it holds that and those duties. As long as it upholds those, the police is loved and supported and heavily funded. And again, that has been shown, and has been shown even in the most recent attack, very clearly and very graphically. It is a disgusting truth, a shameful truth, that we as a nation value more the guns that we hold in our bloody hands than the lives and souls of the most innocent and vulnerable in our society. The poor, the minority, youth. That is, my friends, the most vulnerable in our society, and we will be judged on how we treat our most vulnerable, our most isolated, our most betrayed, our most abused and sidelined of our society. That is just the truth. And I don't know what it will take. I don't know how many more innocents will have to die, will have to be murdered, will have to be physically destroyed for us to begin as a nation to push for gun control. What is it that it will take for us as individuals to withdraw support for a nation that supports and it's okay and finds it okay for kids to lose lives? Many or most of us just continue with our disgusting lives, supporting a government, supporting a set of laws that allows this to happen. People hold the power. The masses hold the power. They just have been trained and brainwashed for so long that they don't, that they have very little power. But with a little sacrifice, with a little withdrawal from the economy, with a little withdrawal of your money, of your wealth, of your effort, your time, your work, your capabilities, your skill, with a little, just a tiny amount from each person of withdrawal from that, will bring the powerful to their knees and start begging just a little withdrawal from the masses, from, let's say, work or purchasing, will surely and very, very likely bring the powerful to their knees and make them put their hands together and beg for you to return to work, and beg for you to return to shopping, and beg for you to return buying things from them so they can keep power. Because ultimately it's about that power. Money, sadly enough, gives them that power, and that power is given to them by us, the people that are spending time and effort to make money and to spend money. So let's think about that. Let's withdraw a little bit. Some of us can withdraw a lot, are in the opportunity or have the chance and opportunity to withdraw a lot from a nation, from a system of abuse and subjugation that allows and upholds the killing of children, the killing of innocent people in a supermarket, in the name of upholding the powerful, the racist, the rich, the ones that have European ancestry. That should not be the case. We should all have equal rights, equal opportunity. We should all have equal weight in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of society, no matter what area and sector of society, economic, educational, social, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you are from European or African descent. It should be looked at and valued the very same. Doesn't matter if you have immigrant background. You should be valued and viewed exactly the same. And until we get to that point, a lot of suffering and a lot of death and destruction will continue to happen. And it is up to us. It is up to the masses, the poor, and the working class to begin to put a stop to it. And it begins putting economic pressure on the rich and powerful. And we all know how to do it. We all know how to quit our jobs. We all know how to withdraw from working overtime. We all know how to demand better working conditions and less working hours and less responsibility at work. And I believe this is a way to begin to put pressure on a system that is continuing to oppress the poor and vulnerable. Thank you very much.